Okay, so step one on the CNC is to turn on the power switch located right here. So turn that on, leave spindle power off until you're actually ready to cut. All right, so we've launched the Mach 3 CNC control software, and when it launches, you'll notice down here it says status, application watchdog triggered, and it says emergency mode active. So it starts in the emergency stop mode, and to release it, you simply hit the reset button, this big red button in the lower left hand corner of the screen, and that gives you control over the machine. Up and page down to raise and lower the machine, but please make sure that you don't hit the limit switches on the Z-axis here, or on either side, the X-axis, there are little green dots that you see, is the Y-axis, 0 switch there, and just avoid those as you're moving the machine around. And keep in mind that if you hold down a button for too long, it'll store those extra keystrokes and keep repeating them until you do run into the 0 limit switch. If it happens, the machine gets away from you, all you have to do is hit the big red button, and that puts it into emergency stop or e-stop mode. So it's in e-stop mode now, and we're going to hit reset to give us control over the machine again, and we're going to get the machine out of the way so we can secure our workpiece. So I've already used the super glue and masking tape trick to mount our stock to a board that we can now secure to the table. These clamps will slide into the T-track, and we're just going to clamp that down to secure it. The next thing to do is to hit reference all home on the Mach 3 side. So back in Mach 3, I hit the E-stop, so I'm going to hit reset. And we're going to work in this area of the screen right here. And before we put our bit in and re-zero, we're going to click reference all home, this vertical button right here. That actually is going to make the machine hit its 0 limit switches first on the Z-axis and then on X and Y, but that's okay. That's all supposed to happen when you hit reference all home. And we're done. I guess I should have started a little closer to home. But that's okay. The next step is to put your bit onto the spindle. We're going to start with the 1/4 inch flat end mill, and that's just going to fit into this little slot. We'll hold the spindle still with this wrench and tighten that up until it's finger tight. And then use a wrench to make sure that that's tight in the collet. All right, do not over tighten. The next step is to zero the machine onto our workpiece. And to do that, we're going to use the touch plate. The touch plate's going to fit here on the corner of the material, and we're going to move the spindle a little bit closer. Keep an eye on that bit, make sure it doesn't hit anything. And always make sure that you plug in the touch plate to its hole right here on top of that gantry right there. I'm going to bring the bit down to within about a 1/4 inch of the top of that plate. We're going to go back to the Mach 3 side here with that bit hovering about a 1/4 inch above the top of the plate, we're going to re-zero the Z axis here. Right now you see it's reading about 4 1/4 inches above, so it thinks it's 4 1/4 inches above 0. Once we do the touch test using the touch plate, it's going to go to what it thinks is Z0. Right now, that's kind of buried deep in the table, so we don't want the bit crashing into the table. We want it to return to the spot that it's hanging at right now. So we're going to say that that's 0 by clicking Z and setting the position where it currently is to 0. Now we can go and reposition that bit inside the touch plate and do the X and Y axis zeroing. All right. So it's first going to move to the left. I'm going to hold on to the touch plate. And on the Mach side, I'm going to click right in the very center of this bullseye, right here. Don't click the Y plus, Y minus, X minus, X plus. Click right in the center of the bullseye. We'll see the machine start to move. First touch the left-hand side, then touch the right-hand side. It's going to do the Y-axis now. I'm actually going to flip the bit around so just the edge of that end mill is going to touch first, and the same for the Y plus direction. Now goes to Z0, which we set on the Mach 3 side. But that's not Z0. We actually want the 0 on the Z-axis to be at the top of our material, and we're going to do that by re-zero the Z-axis by moving the bit directly over the center of the touch plate. And then on the Mach side, we're going to press the Z minus down arrow, and that's going to bring the bit down until it touches the top of the plate. Again, I'm just holding it to secure it. All right. Now we're done with the touch plate part, and we can check our X, Y, Z 0 by clicking here in the center of the screen, go to Z, and it should go right to Z0 at the very corner of your material. All right. So let's review. We referenced all home. We secured our material. We moved the bit over the touch plate, and we hit Z to zero out the axis. We moved the bit into the center of the hole on the touch plate and hit the touch test. And then we zeroed the Z axis by hitting Z minus with the bit above the center of the touch plate. We've done everything that we need to prepare the machine for the first cut. So now we're going to load our G code that we saved earlier on the VCarve side. So I'm going to go into our Vectric files in my personal folder, and you see it says no items matching your search, and that's because it's looking for tap files, and I had saved it as a text file. I'm going to reveal all the files, and you'll see that these are the flat end mill cuts. That matches the bit that we just put in the machine. So I'm going to load that G code first, and over here it gives you a little preview of what it's going to do, and you can zoom in on that by clicking here and scrolling in with the scroll wheel. You can double click on it and it gives you a 3D view. You can move it around by right clicking, right? And you can pan it by left clicking on it like that. Okay, so the next step is to put the shoe back on the machine. I'm going to raise up the bit. The smaller hole on the shoe goes toward the front, and little magnets hold it in place. It just clicks up. Now that we're ready to cut, we're going to put power to the spindle by switching that switch over. The light is green. We're going to start dust collection by sliding the panel out. Now on the Mach 3 side, we're going to turn the spindle on by clicking Spindle CW. adjust your speed on the spindle, and then you can hit cycle start. Now, it'll read through your G-code and execute it until it gets to this step, which is M06, and that's a tool change. And it's warning you to change the tool, but you already changed the tool. So we're ready to cut. We're gonna hit cycle start again to begin the cut itself. And here we go. So now that the cut's done, we need to change the bit to the engraving bit. We're going to first turn off power to the spindle before we start touching the spindle to change the bit. Now we're going to raise up the machine and take the shoe off. So I've got my 90-degree half-inch V-bit. We're going to remove the flat end mill. And insert the V-bit. And now we're going to need the touch plate again. I feel pretty good about the X, Y, 0, but because I've changed the height of the bit, I'm definitely going to have to re-zero Z. So make sure that the touch plate is plugged in again. And back on the Mach side, we're going to manipulate, maneuver the bit. It's got to be within at least 2 inches of the top of the touch plate. I'm going to bring it down to about 1/4 inch above it. And then I'm going to hit, again, the Z- button here, and it'll find the top of the touch plate. All right, we're going to check this one more time by hitting go to Z. And that brings the bit right to the corner of our workpiece. I'm done with this G-code, so I'm going to close this out and load in the G-code for the V-bit engrave for the Decatur Maker's sign. And that gives us, again, on the right side, a preview of what it's going to do. And we're ready to cut. Now we're ready to engrave with the V-bit. We're going to turn on the vacuum, power to the spindle. And on the Mach side, we're going to hit spindle CW. That stands for clockwise. And cycle start. Again, that brings us to the M06. That's a tool change, but we already changed our tool and zeroed it out. So cycle start again to continue. Well, that's the last step. You can power off the spindle. Move it out of the way and check out your sign. Now, the only thing you have to do is to clean all this mess up.